Thank you, Mark. That would make a sermon right there, right? One of the phrases that caught your attention. Let's just take a breath. Hold that phrase. So the last 2 times that I did this Creation Justice Sunday, I had a little gift to pass out. I thought about buying those little handheld fans, right? And then I thought, plastic, batteries, people got them in their drawers already. So no gifts today. But I'd like to quiz you. You can use your bulletin. It's a good idea, yeah. I'd like to quiz you on phrases that relate to the wind that you probably know, but if I say what they mean, can you say what the phrase is, or the symbolic language of the wind? So, anticipation. There's something in the wind. Yes. How about recovery? Second wind. Perfect. Yes. You'd get one of those little fans. How about disappointment? Yes, wind out of the sail, taking the wind out of your sails. Yes. Good luck. Windfall, yes. Inflated promises. Windbag. Okay, I think it's okay to do this one in church. Falling down drunk. 3 sheets to the wind. Okay, if we can do that one, then we can do this one. Passing gas. Breaking wind. There you go. Okay, I'll clean it up. Lost opportunity. That gone with the wind, that's good. I hadn't thought of that. That ship has sailed. Right? It doesn't have wind in it, but the idea is. And then as I was researching, I found these life lessons. It's hard to put them in a concise phrase. But this one, a sailor without a destination, can you finish it for me? Cannot tell a good wind from a bad. Any sailors in the room? All right. Is that true? How about this one? A smooth sea, never made for a good sailor. You need a little trouble on the water, a little, gusty wind maybe. And then this one, sails, not the direction of the wind, determine which way we go. So I don't know a lot about wind, so I did a little research, and I have a 3-hour sermon for you. I'm just kidding. I'm going to say Google it. If you don't know, Google it. But here's some interesting, I wondered what a strong wind is, right? Like when we see wind advisories, what does that mean? What is that? I mean, we know what it feels like, but what does it mean as far as the speed of the wind? So, any guesses on a moderate wind, what the miles per hour of the wind would be? Just a moderate kind of gentle wind that we would experience. But that's a good guess. I guess when there's wind that you can feel, the source that I'm quoting said 26 to 39 miles per hour. A moderate. No? Okay, y'all need to go to Google and fix this. And then they said a wind advisory, and this is where we usually hear about it, is 35 to 57 miles an hour. And then sustained winds, where there's a wind warning, is 50 to 60 miles per hour. Hurricane winds, 74 to 136 miles per hour. Any guesses on tornadoes? Yeah, up to 300 miles per hour, beginning at about 100 miles per hour. Yeah. So wind that passes through a forest loses strength. I don't know if you've experienced this. If you're walking and there are no trees and the wind is blowing and then you walk into the trees and it warms up, right? 20 to 40% of its strength through 100 feet of forest. 93% of its strength after 400 feet of forest. It's pretty amazing what a forest can do to the strength of wind. Rocks also slow down wind. The wind deposits water as it blows, the water that it carries into the tiny pores of the rocks, which expand and contract with the weather and break the rocks up. So they're keeping the wind from blowing. And there's an example. The Appalachian Mountains extend from the Gulf of Mexico to Alabama, the oldest mountain range in the United States, used to be taller than the Rockies. It's been worn down by the wind. There are many kinds of winds. Winds are given specific names. We know recently about the Santa Ana winds, right? They blow from the deserts in the southwest and they stirred up the fires in California. The Sriracha winds, anyone hear of the Sriracha winds? They blow over the Mediterranean. And in 582, the year 582, because these winds pick up red sand, it was called a shower of blood over Europe. Everything turned red. Various cultures have different understandings of the wind. In Egypt, the closest culture to our ancient text, the wind is a vital force. It's breath or creation. In Chinese, qi is wind. It's life force, balanced health, and energy flow. Among Pacific Islanders, the wind connects the sea to the land. And so this ever-shifting shoreline reminds us of change. The wind symbolizes change. In African cultures, the wind carries the spirits, protects the living, brings blessings, connects us with our inner self, invites self-expression, helps us embrace our individuality, helps us to leave a mark and move forward. Among many indigenous peoples, the wind is sovereign, a deity. A tribe on the continent we live on, Micmac, there's a story of a strong wind that blows and turns bad people into aspen trees. A redemptive story. There's some fascinating stuff about the symbolism of the four winds, the winds that come from each direction and what they mean. Google it. There's some fascinating stuff about the meaning of wind in dreams. So if you're a person who remembers your dreams, I invite you to take a look. Google it. The wind is all around us. It's movement of air that sustains creation. The wind is symbolic of the presence of God among us and the breath of God in us. In our ancient text, wind, breath, and spirit are all the same word. They're ruach in Hebrew and pneuma in Greek or Aramaic, and both of those nouns are feminine. So you might notice I've been using she or her to describe the wind, and I'll continue to do that. Judaism and Islam, the same thing. Ruach or Ru is the word for the Spirit of God. In Hinduism, I just consulted with our expert, Jerry. Wind is represented by the term Vaya, the god of air. It represents not only the physical wind, but also the life force or breath, considered vital energy within living beings. In our ancient texts, there are many stories and many references. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. There was chaos. God's Spirit hovered over it. And there was everything. God's Spirit, God's breath, the wind blew and created everything beautiful and good. The Psalms have many references to wind. I invite you to look back at the call to community, which was from Psalm 104. Just a couple of the lines. You could substitute spirit for wind. Creating God, the first line, creating God, traveling on the wings of the Spirit. The second line, you make the Spirit your messengers. The third line, you have weighed out the Spirit whose wind fills the world. See the interchangeable nature of those words in the Psalms. And then there's the Noah story, right? Noah's cooped up with a bunch of animals for 40 days in this story. The rain stops. He's waiting for the water to recede, and we read that the wind blows. God sends a strong wind to take the waters away. In the Moses story, there's also a strong wind. The Israelites have fled from Egypt out of slavery. They're against the water, the Red Sea or the Reed Sea. Their captors are behind them, wanting to take them back into slavery. And a strong wind blows and creates a path through the sea so the Israelites can go through. The prophet Ezekiel, it's a little less known perhaps, but there's a valley of dry bones. It's an image in Ezekiel's mind, dream about the bones of people who have died because of the oppressor. A valley of dried bones, it feels helpless. God tells Ezekiel, speak to the bones about coming to life. Ezekiel's flabbergasted. And then God blows life into the bones, giving them hope for the future. The bones are filled with the Spirit and are resurrected. Another story filled with wind is in the Christian text. It's around a day we call Pentecost. Pentecost Day, the disciples were hunkered down in a room. They were waiting for God's promises of something to happen, but they were afraid. Jesus had died. They didn't know what was going to happen. And there they are in the room, and a gale wind blows through. Think tornado, blows through. The windows are blown open. The doors are blown off, and they're blown out into the street. The call is to breathe into the world God's love. And then there's the story that Mark read from John. We often avoid this story because of that born again language, right? But really what it means is a letting go, a getting rid of all the old stuff, all the dead stuff, all the stuff that doesn't work. It's connected with baptism. You go under the water, drowning, coming up again, a new person. And it's in that text where we read, the wind causes that to happen, blows where she will. I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath. Again, if there's a phrase or a thought or an idea that connects with you, to breathe it in, integrate it into who you are. And then breathe out that truth into the world. These texts from our ancient scripture give us permission to connect our spirituality with nature. And there's a story that John Lewis writes in his memoir, Walking with the Wind, 1998. John Lewis was the 5th Congressional District representative to the House of Representatives for Georgia's 5th District. He writes this: on this particular afternoon, about 15 of us were outside my Aunt Saniva's house, playing in her dirt yard. The sky began clouding over, the wind started picking up, lightning flashed far off into the distance, and suddenly I wasn't thinking about playing anymore. I was terrified. Aunt Saniva was the only adult around, and as the sky blackened and the wind grew stronger, she herded us all inside. Her house was not the biggest place around, and it seemed even smaller, with so many children squeezed inside. Small and surprisingly quiet. All the shouting and laughter that had been going on earlier outside had stopped. The wind was howling now, and the house was starting to shake. We were scared. Even Aunt Saniva was scared. And then it got worse. Now the house was beginning to sway. The wood plank flooring began to bend, and then a corner of the room lifted up. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. None of us could. This storm was actually pulling the house toward the sky with us inside it. That was when Aunt Saniva told us, line up and hold hands. And we did as we were told. Then she had us walk as a group toward the corner of the room that was rising. From the kitchen to the front of the house we walked, the wind screaming outside, sheets of rain beating on the tin roof. Then we walked back in the other direction as another end of the house began to lift. And so it went, back and forth, 15 children walking with the wind, holding that trembling house down with the weight of our small bodies. More than half a century has passed since that day, Lewis writes, and it has struck me more than once over those many years that our society is not unlike the children in that house. Rocked again and again by the winds of one storm or another, the walls around us seeming at times as if they might fly apart. It seemed that way in the 1960s, at the height of the civil rights movement, when America itself felt as if it might burst at the seams. So much tension, so many storms. But the people of conscience never left the house. They never ran away. They stayed. They came together. They did the best they could, clasping hands and moving toward the corner of the house that was weakest. But we knew another storm would come, and we would have to do it all over again. And we did, and we still do, all of us, you and I, children, holding hands, walking with the wind. That is America to me, not just the movement for civil rights, but the endless struggle to respond with decency, dignity, and a sense of brotherhood to all the challenges that face us as a nation, as a whole. I'll paraphrase Lewis's summary. That's the story, in essence, of our lives, of the path to which we've been committed, to which we remain committed today. It's a path that extends beyond the issue of race and class and gender and age and every other distinction that tends to separate us as human beings rather than bring us together. That path involves nothing less than the pursuit of the most precious and pure concept that has guided me like a beacon ever since, a concept called the beloved community. Again, I invite you to take a breath to capture the essence of that story for you, to integrate it. We all know that physicality is mostly space. Theoretically, we could take our hand and put it through a table. But because the molecules are moving so fast, we can't do that. The Spirit, if this is true and we're mostly space, the Spirit has lots of room to blow around. She can blow through us, sweep out the cobwebs and the dust bunnies, the things that aren't working for us anymore. If you need rest and renewal, if you're tired and lethargic, the Spirit can help you breathe deeply and relax. If you're complacent or cynical or angry or paralyzed, she can sweetly play with your heart, refocus and revive the spirit of love within. Like the wind that drops water crystals in rocks that freeze and blow the rocks into little pieces, when the Spirit blows into our being, opportunities for wellness and thriving occur. We can be reborn, remade, renewed, revived, recovered, redeemed into the people who create beloved community. Amen? Take a moment to breathe these truths into your being.